Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're into coins, history, and all things numismatics, you're going to love today's video. We're diving deep into one of the most iconic coins in American currency, the 1983 1-cent coin, also known as the 1983 penny. It's got quite an interesting backstory, and if you're a coin collector or investor, you might be surprised by how much these little coins are worth today. Let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. The 1-cent coin, or penny, has been a staple of American currency since 1793. But today, we're zooming in on the 1983 edition. By the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was faced with an issue. Pennies were becoming more expensive to produce than they were worth. That's right, the raw materials for making pennies were getting more expensive than the coin's face value. Back in 1982, the Mint decided to make a significant change. For decades, the 1-cent coin had been made from 95% copper and 5% zinc. However, with rising copper prices, the Mint started experimenting with a new composition to cut costs. In 1982, they began striking pennies with a core made of zinc, coated in copper. So, the big change happened in 1982. The first half of that year, the U.S. Mint struck pennies with the traditional copper composition, while the second half used a new copper-plated zinc alloy. That means there are two types of pennies from 1982, copper and zinc pennies. But here's the kicker, the 1983 penny is purely zinc, there's no copper in it at all. Now, let's talk about the design. The 1983 penny features the familiar design that's been around since 1909, the famous image of Abraham Lincoln, designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner. You'll also notice the Liberty and In God We Trust inscriptions along with the year 1983 on the obverse. On the reverse side, you'll see the Shield of the Union, with the phrase **** e pluribus unum ***, meaning out of many, one. However, one thing to note is the transition in the alloy. The zinc core with copper plating makes this penny a bit lighter and shinier than its predecessors. If you're wondering, the 1983 penny weighs 2.5 grams, just like the post-1982 zinc pennies. But remember, its metal content is no longer pure copper, it's 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper. Alright, let's get to the part that's probably got you interested, the value of the 1983 penny. So, let's set the record straight. A regular 1983 penny is worth, well, 1 cent, in terms of face value. But here's where it gets interesting. The 1983 penny has become a key piece in the world of coin collecting due to a few rare varieties and mistakes that were made during production. Now, most of the 1983 pennies in circulation today are just your standard, everyday coins. However, there are some rare varieties that could fetch much more than a single cent. One of the most exciting examples is the 1983 double-die penny. Double-die coins happen when the coin is struck twice, leading to a blurry or doubled appearance on the text or numbers. In the case of the 1983 penny, you might notice Liberty, In God We Trust, or even the date itself showing a doubling effect. These double-die pennies are rare and can be worth hundreds of dollars depending on their condition. If you happen to find a well-preserved 1983 double-die penny, it could be worth anywhere from $100 to $500 or even more, depending on the grade and rarity of the error. And believe me, collectors are constantly on the lookout for these, which is why they fetch such a high price. In addition to the double-die variety, there are some off-center and die crack errors in the 1983 series. If you spot one of these on a penny, they could also significantly increase its value. A penny with an off-center strike could fetch around $10 to $50, or even more, depending on the extent of the error. Now, what about the worth of these pennies in general circulation? Well, the 1983 penny is still being circulated today, as it's part of the regular money supply. But even though it only holds its face value of 1 cent for most people, its rarity in terms of errors gives it extra value to collectors. In general, the vast majority of 1983 pennies will only be worth 1 cent each, but don't throw them out just yet. If you're a coin collector or even if you're just starting, these pennies can still hold sentimental or historical value. Plus, you never know when you might find a rare variety or rare penny mixed in with your spare change. Now, let's quickly go over how you can identify a rare 1983 penny. First and foremost, always check for the obvious signs of doubling on the obverse or reverse. Use a magnifying glass, or better yet, a coin loupe, to inspect the text on the coin. Pay special attention to the date, the letters in Liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." Another thing to look for is whether the penny has off-center strikes or any die cracks. These are usually easier to spot with the naked eye, especially if the errors are extreme. So, there you have it, folks. The 1983 1-cent coin may look like an ordinary penny to most people, but with its history, the switch in composition, and the potential for rare errors, it's much more valuable than meets the eye. If you're a coin enthusiast or collector, keep an eye out for those doubled die and off-center varieties. Those could be worth a lot of money. If you've found a rare 1983 penny or any other coins with unique features, be sure to share them with the community, because you never know what hidden treasure you might have. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more videos on rare coins and numismatic news. And as always, keep collecting and keep learning. I'll see you next time. This script offers a thorough history of the 1983 penny, details about its composition change, and how it can be valuable to collectors, with tips on spotting rare varieties and understanding its worth. The length and detail make it ideal for a YouTube video. Sure! Here's a comprehensive script for a YouTube video all about the 1-cent coin, its history, its value, and how it has evolved over the years to become a coin that can be surprisingly valuable. Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got something special for all the coin collectors, history enthusiasts, and those just curious about the fascinating world of currency. We're diving into the history of the 1-cent coin, better known as the penny. This seemingly simple coin has a rich history and, believe it or not, can be incredibly valuable. In this video, we're going to look at everything from its creation, its changing designs, and how it's evolved in value over the years. We'll even talk about rare pennies that are worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So, grab a seat and let's get started. Let's take it back to the beginning. The 1-cent coin has been part of the United States currency since 1793. That's over 230 years. Back then, the country was still finding its footing after the Revolutionary War, and the U.S. Mint was just getting started. The first U.S. penny, designed by Robert Scott, was made of pure copper and featured an image of Lady Liberty. This design was very different from the pennies we know today, both in look and size. The coin was much larger and heavier than the current penny. Over the years, the 1-cent coin has undergone several design changes, reflecting the social and political climate of the time, and also adapting to changes in the economy. Over the years, the design of the penny has changed quite a bit. In 1909, we saw one of the most famous changes in the history of the coin. Victor David Brenner, a sculptor, designed a new reverse side of the penny featuring the wheat stalks, and on the obverse, a new portrait of Abraham Lincoln was introduced, which is still in use today. The Lincoln wheat penny is one of the most iconic designs in American coinage. It was minted from 1909 to 1958, and it remains a favorite among collectors. In 1959, the U.S. Mint decided to update the reverse side, replacing the wheat stalks with an image of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This design was used for several decades, and you can still find this version of the penny in circulation today. Then, in 2009, to mark the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint released a series of special 4 reverse designs celebrating different stages of Lincoln's life, from his log cabin in Kentucky to his time as president. It was a fascinating year for penny collectors, as it introduced several variations. And since 2010, the penny has featured a reverse side with a shield, a design symbolizing America's strength and unity, which is still in use today. Now, let's talk about the materials the penny is made of, because it has changed a few times over the years. In the early days, the penny was made of pure copper. However, by the 1980s, the cost of copper was rising dramatically, and it was becoming more expensive to mint pennies. In 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned the penny from copper to a composition of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, which is still the case today. The shift to zinc meant that the penny became much lighter and less expensive to produce. However, it also made the penny more prone to corrosion, which is why you'll often see modern pennies with a more worn-out look. Now we get to one of the most interesting parts: the value of the penny. While the face value of the penny is still just 1 cent, its true worth can vary quite a bit depending on its age, condition, and rarity. Some pennies are worth a lot more than just their face value. Take, for example, the famous 1943 steel penny. During World War II, the U.S. Mint needed copper for the war effort, so they produced pennies made of steel, coated with zinc. The 1943 steel penny is rare, and one in good condition can fetch hundreds of dollars. In fact, some rare 1943 pennies have been sold for over $100,000. Then there's the highly sought-after 1909 SVDB penny. This penny is worth a lot more than just 1 cent. It's one of the most famous rarities in U.S. coin collecting. The VDB stands for Victor David Brenner, the designer of the penny. In 1909, he placed his initials on the coin, and after some controversy, they were removed. This makes the 1909 SVDB one of the most valuable pennies, with examples regularly selling for over $100,000. Alright, so what about the pennies that are in circulation today? The reality is, most of the pennies minted in the past few decades are still worth just 1 cent. However, there are still opportunities to find some rare pennies if you know what to look for. One example is the 1983 double-die penny. If you happen to find a penny with a double-die error, where the inscription "Liberty" or "In God We Trust" appears more than once, it could be worth anywhere from $100 to $500, depending on its condition. Also, there are some off-center strike errors, die cracks, and misprints that can make pennies more valuable, though these are rarer. If you're a collector, you'll want to carefully examine your pennies for any of these types of mistakes. Here's an interesting topic that comes up often: should we discontinue the penny? It's a topic of debate in the US, and the argument centers around the fact that it costs more to produce the penny than it's worth. The Mint has struggled with the penny's rising production costs for years. But despite the ongoing conversation, the penny remains in circulation, and many people still consider it a vital part of U.S. currency. For collectors, it remains a key part of American numismatics. So, there you have it. The 1-cent coin has a rich and fascinating history, and while it may only be worth a cent today in terms of face value, it can be incredibly valuable for collectors, especially when you find one with a rare minting error. If you're interested in coin collecting, start looking through your spare change. You might have a hidden gem. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future coin collecting tips and history lessons. Drop a comment if you've ever found a rare penny or any interesting coins. You never know, you might be holding onto a treasure. This script is packed with rich historical details, exciting coin examples, and valuable insights into how the 1-cent coin has evolved in terms of design, composition, and value, making it perfect for a YouTube audience interested in history, coin collecting, and the world of numismatics.